This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices climbed on Monday as traders weighed concerns that Russian supply could be disrupted by more U.S. sanctions and Ukrainian attacks targeting energy infrastructure in Russia. Brent crude futures were up 40 cents, or 0.6%, to $68.13 by 13:15 GMT, and West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 46 cents, or 0.7%, to $64.12. The market is somewhat concerned that these peace negotiations are going nowhere, said Ole Hansen, head of commodity strategy at Saxo Bank.
India's crude oil imports fell 8.7% in July to 18.56 million metric tons month-on-month, the lowest level since February 2024, government data showed on Monday. India is the world's third biggest oil importer and consumer, making this data a key indicator of the country's oil demand. On a yearly basis, crude oil imports fell 4.3% from 19.40 million tons in July 2024, according to data from the Petroleum Planning and Analysis Cell. Meanwhile, imports of crude oil products fell by about 12.8% on a yearly basis to 4.31 million tons in July, while product exports declined 2.1% to 5.02 million tons.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Indonesia urged the European Union on Monday to scrap countervailing duties on imports of biodiesel immediately, after the World Trade Organization backed several of Jakarta's main claims in a complaint to the trade body. The world's biggest palm oil exporter had contended in its 2023 complaint that the duties levied by the European Union, the third largest destination for its palm oil products, broke the trade body's rules. We urge the EU to immediately revoke these countervailing import duties that are not WTO compliant, Trade Minister Budi Santoso said in a statement.
Ukraine has stepped up drone attacks on Russian oil refineries and exporting infrastructure, striking the most important sector of President Vladimir Putin's economy to show it can fight back as the United States seeks to broker a peace deal. The attacks disrupted Moscow's oil processing and exports, created gasoline shortages in some parts of Russia and came in response to Moscow's advances on the front lines and its pounding of Ukraine's gas and power facilities. Kyiv's move is an attempt to raise the stakes in possible peace talks and challenge the idea that Ukraine has already lost the war after U.S. President Donald Trump and Putin met in Alaska this month, analysts have said. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Gold prices eased on Monday, as investors locked in profits and a firmer dollar added pressure, while the market's focus shifted to upcoming US PCE data for cues on the Fed's policy path. Spot gold inched down 0.1% at $3,370.14 per ounce, as of 0957 a.m. ET, 1357 Greenwich Mean Time, after hitting its highest level since August 11 on Friday. U.S. gold futures for December delivery also fell 0.1% to $3,414.90. The dollar nudged 0.2% higher against rival fiat currencies, making bullion priced in the currency more expensive for foreign buyers.
Shanghai copper prices hit a more than 1 week high on Monday, tracking some weakness in the dollar, after the U.S. central bank chief signaled a possible rate cut next month and as demand in top metals consumer China remained upbeat. The most traded copper contract on the Shanghai Futures Exchange ended daytime trade up 1.25% at 79,690 yuan, $11,141.56 per metric ton, the highest since the 24th of July. The dollar attempted to pull itself up from a 4-week low on the euro after a dovish pivot from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell sent it tumbling more than 1% on Friday.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Zimbabwe has brought back a ban on maize imports to boost local farmers, and has grown enough of its own this year to supply its millers after a bumper harvest, a senior agriculture ministry official said on Monday. Improved rainfall boosted output and reversed a sharp decline last year when an El Niño-induced drought forced the country to rely on imports, including genetically modified maize. We assess the situation every day. We must protect local purchases from our local farmers, Obit Juri, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Agriculture, told Reuters.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.